Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The suitcase hit my chest and dropped to the porch. I had just shoved it through the doorway and stepped back. My name is Mark, I am 36, and tonight I chose rage over questions. My hand stayed on the knob, ready to slam the door again. I did not know yet how expensive that single choice would become. She grabbed the handle fast and jerked the suitcase upright. "Mark, stop this, listen to me for 1 minute." Her voice shook, but the way she squared her shoulders did not. I blocked the doorway with my body like a barricade. If I let her inside again, I knew I would fold. 3 minutes earlier, her phone had buzzed on our couch. I picked it up without thinking, just a bored habit. One preview line sat there, bright and casual and filthy. "You left me wrecked today, I want you again soon." My throat closed so hard I almost dropped the phone. I opened the thread and saw the contact name. Not a full name, not even initials, just a single letter. That lazy little alias told me whoever it was felt secure. Dozens of messages stacked there, short and hungry and private. None of them belonged in a married woman's life. Out on the porch, she reached toward my arm. "Give me my phone, we talk inside, we fix this." I stepped back and tucked it behind my hip. "You did all your fixing somewhere else, go there tonight." The way her mouth tightened told me I hit something raw. She tried to angle past me, shoulder first like a shove. I pushed her back with my forearm, not gentle at all. The suitcase rolled sideways and bumped against her ankle. "Do you want the neighbors to call the cops now?" The thought flashed through me, but I still did not move. A door opened across the hall, then closed again fast. I heard someone whisper, then footsteps retreating down the stairs. We had become that couple, the late-night spectacle, the warning. She glanced toward the noise, then back at me, eyes hardening. Her pride kicked in exactly when my doubt should have. "You think you saw everything, you saw one dirty corner." She spread her arms a little, daring me to argue. "If you throw me out over half a story, remember that later." The words landed heavier than any slap, but I still nodded. At that moment, punishment felt cleaner than curiosity. I tossed her phone onto the floor behind me and stepped aside. "Take your things, take your secrets, go enjoy letter boy." Her jaw clenched at that, so she knew I had read enough. She dragged the suitcase past me, shoulders rigid, eyes burning holes. I watched her cross the hallway like a stranger I barely recognized. At the stairs, she turned once and pointed straight at me. "You are not the only one getting lied to here, remember that." Her voice dropped on the last words, almost soft, almost kind. Then she pulled the suitcase after her, one step, then another, then silence. Only later did I understand who else she meant with that warning. The lock clicked and I kicked her cell across the entry. It skidded, hit the wall, and dropped face up by the shoe rack. For a second, I just watched the screen glow on and off. My chest heaved like I had run a mile with weights. If I walked away now, I knew I would crawl back later. I bent down and scooped it up before the light died. My thumb hovered over the code she always used on everything. Punching it in felt worse than any punch I had imagined. The home screen opened, her smile in a beach selfie grinning up. I turned it over like I could flip away the version who lied. The messaging app icon pulsed with that tiny red counter. I tapped it and the same thread jumped to the top. That contact with the single initial sat there like a dare. I forced myself deeper instead of staring at the last filthy line. If truth hurt, I wanted the whole set, not one scrap. The scroll jumped back weeks with one swipe of my thumb. Little bubbles stacked in clusters, gaps between them like secret days. Some lines were stupid jokes, some were planning, some were graphic. Too many references to hotels, long lunches, and quick visits. This was not a glitch, this was a routine with my wife. I hit on a message where she had written "you first." No hearts, no jokes, just 3 words that punched my lungs. "You cannot text me this weekend, he will be home." My grip tightened on the phone so much my knuckles ached. I had never felt more present in my own worst nightmare. Deeper down the thread, things shifted from playful to urgent. The tone changed from flirty to something closer to negotiation. There was talk about deadlines and pressure and someone losing patience. The more I read, the less this looked like a simple affair. Underneath the filth, another pattern kept twitching just out of reach. I found the first attached image almost by accident while scrolling. The preview showed crumpled bedding, not much else, just folds. My thumb hovered over it while my heart slammed against bone. If I opened it, there was an oh, going back to maybe. I tapped anyway because doubt was worse than any picture. The photo cleared and I saw a corner of her wrist. That tiny familiar scar near her thumb sat right there. No face, no full bodies, only that wrist against rumpled fabric. My eyes locked on it, willing it to belong to someone else. My mind filled the rest in faster than any camera ever could. I backed out of the image and nearly flung the phone. Instead, I swallowed hard and aimed for the call history icon. My brain needed something with numbers, something I could count. The recent list showed one unknown entry repeating like a refrain. Same number again and again, always before those hotel visits. I pressed it, listened to the options, then killed the call fast. I was not ready to hear that voice answer me tonight. Not while my hands shook and my jaw clenched until it hurt. Whoever owned that number already knew parts of my life. I refused to let him hear me panting through his little game. Backing out, I opened her mail, chasing something I could control. New alerts blinked from our credit account, small but regular. Recurring charges from a place I recognized but could not place. It was not our gym, not a store, not a restaurant. I memorized the name, already planning to look it up later. My rage started folding in on itself, leaving something colder. Every answer spawned another question, each one heavier than the last. I had wanted a simple villain, not this tangled mess. Cheating I knew how to hate, this was more confusing. There were pieces here that did not match a normal betrayal. Near the top of the messages list, a tiny draft icon waited. I almost missed it, buried under all the active threads. Her unsent text sat there with my name on the first line. It began with "I need to tell you something important about." The final word was a name that knocked the air from me. My brother. His name sat there, half-written, cut off mid-thought. The sentence ended after that word, nothing else, no punctuation. She had typed it, paused, then never finished or deleted. She had been ready to drag him into this before I ever knew. I stared at that half-formed confession until my vision blurred. The phone slipped in my damp grip and the draft window jumped. My thumb hit the wrong corner and a warning flashed up. Without thinking, I tapped again, desperate to clear the box. The screen blinked and her unfinished message vanished like it never existed. I froze, waiting for an undo prompt that never appeared anywhere. The space where the draft had been looked scrubbed and clean. I had erased the one thing she had tried to tell me. The one piece that might have linked her lies to something larger. My own impatience had just sliced off my last clean lid. A new vibration buzzed in my palm, jarring me back. Unknown number, same one I had seen in the call log. This time it was a text, short enough to fit on one line. She did not show tonight, you might want to check on her. I stared at that sentence and finally realized I was not the only person who had lost track of my wife. I hit call before my thumb could change direction. The unknown number rang twice, then a man picked up. No greeting, just a low breath like I had interrupted something. For a second I almost hung up and lied to myself. Then I remembered my front door closing on my wife's back. You texted me about someone not showing up tonight. My voice came out tight, unfamiliar, nearly breaking on that last word. A short pause followed, then a small amused chuckle slipped through. So you finally answer, I was starting to think nobody cared. He dragged out the last word until my jaw locked. Where is she? I kept it flat because begging would feed him. Another pause, longer this time, like he was weighing prices. That depends on where you last saw her, husband. Hearing that title from him turned my stomach inside out. I stepped deeper into the living room, pacing in short bursts. I threw her out, she was supposed to meet you after. The confession tasted rotten, but I forced it anyway. He let out a low whistle that made my skin prickle. So you kicked out the only person trying to solve this. That line hit harder than anything he could threaten directly. What are you talking about? Solve what for who? I stopped moving, waiting for whatever came next from him. You already know she met me more than once, right? His tone shifted, less playful now, more like a test. I gripped the phone tighter and stared at the blank wall. I know enough to understand she lied, that is plenty. He laughed again, shorter, more impatient than before. If that was true, I would not be texting you now. Something about his certainty scared me more than any insult. Listen carefully, husband. Paper rustled faintly near his side of the line. She owes money on a schedule. We do not like delays. He stressed the word we, making it sound D wider than just him. Tonight was important. She promised to handle a big piece. My heartbeat hammered in my throat, choking the next question. So this is about debt, not sleeping around with you. The words jumped out before I could dress them politely. He snorted, unimpressed, like I had missed the real drama. Grow up, I do not need to chase married women for fun. He let that sit, giving it room to sting. If she used that story to keep you clueless, that is between you. My knees felt weak. I dropped onto the nearest seat hard. What did she agree to, and why would I care? I already knew I cared, I just hated showing it. Because your name is on the paperwork, that is why. I heard a drawer open, then something slide across wood. She came to me to keep certain threats away from your door. He cleared his throat once, as if picking phrases from a list. She asked for time, worked out a plan, started paying steadily. My mouth went dry enough that words stuck for a moment. You are saying I owe you money, and she handled it. Each part sounded unreal, like someone else's disaster. You are behind, and tonight was supposed to catch you up. He lowered his voice, almost gentle, which somehow felt worse. I stood again, pacing faster, soles dragging across the floor. How much, how long, what happens if she stays missing? He let out a slow breath that fuzzed in my ear. Come meet me tomorrow, same spot she usually used. He named a place I recognized from earlier charges on her account. I am not agreeing to anything on this call. My hand shook so hard the phone nearly slipped away. Too late for that, your signature made sure a while ago. His tone hardened, losing the earlier lazy rhythm entirely. Show up or someone else drops by, and I promise you hate that. He ended the call before I could push for more details. The silence that followed rang louder than his voice had. I stood there, staring at my own reflection in the dark screen. Marriage, debt, some stranger holding both like strings in one hand. The simple cheater narrative I clung to started cracking down the middle. Instinct pushed me toward one name, the same one from her half-text. I grabbed my jacket and keys, fingers fumbling on the hook. The urge to storm that meeting place right away burned inside. Instead, I marched to the garage and climbed into the car. If anyone could explain how my signature ended up there, it was family. The drive to my brother's place blurred into turns and red lights. At every stop, my mind replayed that man's tone on the phone. Not jealous, not romantic, more like an annoyed bookkeeper with teeth. Each mile added a new layer of dread on top of anger. By the time I pulled up, my hands had steadied into something colder. I hammered on the front door until a porch light flicked on. The door cracked open just enough for one wary eye. Do you know what time it is? His voice came out groggy, but his face sharpened when he saw me. Whatever sleepiness, he had vanished the moment he clocked my expression. I pushed inside before he could close it and walked past. We are talking now, not tomorrow, not next week. He shut the door with a quick jerk that rattled the frame. What happened? Where is she? Why do you look like that? He blocked the hallway, but his shoulders drooped under some invisible weight. I held up my phone, the unknown number still on screen. You recognize this contact because I just got a lecture from him. His gaze flicked down, then away, then back again slower. A faint twitch jumped in his cheek like a small electric shock. I hoped you would never see that, but here we are. I stepped closer until there was barely any space between us. He claims my autograph is on some arrangement and she covered it. The words came out clipped, each one a little too loud. His eyes closed for a second, then opened with a different look. Guilt, panic, and something like resignation layered together. Sit down before you punch me through a wall. He moved to the side and gestured toward the kitchen. I stayed standing because sitting felt like giving ground. Have you heard from her since you threw her out? The way he emphasized that last part felt like its own accusation. I swallowed back a defensive reply and focused on the question. No calls, no messages, only that text from her contact. He dragged a hand down his face, scraping across stubble. She came to see me last week. She looked exhausted. Those words tightened something in my chest that I refused to name. She told me she could not keep covering for me much longer. He leaned against the counter, not looking directly my way. I screwed up first. I borrowed through a guy she found. My head snapped toward him so fast my neck twinged. You dragged her into this mess, then let her shield me too. He finally met my eyes, hands lifted like a weak defense. I thought I had time to fight. Exit, she thought so too. His voice cracked on the last phrase, barely holding steady. She insisted you stayed out of it, she was stubborn on that. That stubborn streak was one of the reasons I fell for her. I shook my head, trying to organize the flood into something usable. Why is my name on anything if this started with you? The question came out through clenched teeth, more growl than words. Because he wanted a stronger guarantee and I forged one. He flinched as the confession landed, bracing for my reaction. For a heartbeat, everything inside me went white and empty. Forgery. Dead. The Reds. My marriage thrown aside while she tried to plug holes I never saw. I grabbed the back of a chair to stop myself from swinging at him. He kept talking, words spilling now that the dam had cracked. She found out a while ago, she almost reported both of us. He paced the narrow space, hands moving in frantic half circles. That man gave her an alternative she negotiated on your behalf. Each new detail twisted the knife I had already driven into us. She told me there was one more meeting, then she would confess. He stopped pacing, planting both palms flat on the table. She said if you ever knew, she wanted to say it herself. My mind jumped straight to the unsent message I had erased. I had deleted her last chance to explain before I even knew I needed it. I straightened up and stepped back toward the door, decisions forming. This collector wants me at that place tomorrow, I am going. My brother moved fast, cutting me off with both arms spread. You walk in alone, you are walking into his playground. That word playground turned my stomach, but my mind was already shifting. I have to see his face, I need to hear every condition. My voice dropped, calm again, which scared us both. If she went missing on her way there, he knows something. We stared at each other across the small room, breathing hard. For the first time that night, I felt fear for her stronger than my fury. The bell over the entrance rattled as I pushed through. He had picked a spot that stank enough to turn my stomach. I almost backed out, then remembered I had already thrown away my marriage. A man at the counter watched me too long and looked away. Every step toward the rear door felt like walking into someone else's plan. A narrow hallway led past a storage room to a half-open door. Voices drifted out, low and steady, no laughter at all. I knocked once with my knuckles and pushed before anyone invited me. A middle-aged guy in a pressed shirt leaned against a filing cabinet. He smiled like we already knew how this conversation ended. Another man sat in a corner chair, arms crossed over his chest. He glanced at me, then at the jacket I still wore. No one offered introductions, no one pretended this was a meeting. I am here about the messages last night. My voice sounded calmer than the pulse pounding inside my ears. The guy by the cabinet tapped a folder against his palm. So you are the husband who finally decided to care. He sized me up from shoes to hair, unimpressed. Your wife usually arrived earlier, she respected schedules. He let that comparison hang between us like a test I already failed. I shifted my weight and kept my hands visible near my pockets. You contacted me, so talk about whatever you think I owe. The man in the corner uncrossed his arms and sat forward. Pressed shirt opened the folder and slid a document toward me. Start by recognizing your autograph so we know we speak clearly. My name sat there in large, neat letters above a date. The signature looked perfect, except I had never held that pen. Heat rushed up my neck as I stared at those curves. My brother's version of my name, practiced since we were kids. I did not touch the page like ink could burn skin. Pressed shirt watched my face instead of the paper on the desk. That mark got you a generous arrangement a while back. He tapped the number at the bottom, a total that knotted my gut. Your partner started covering the damage without involving you. His eyes sharpened, waiting to see if that word landed. She told you it was between the two of you. I forced the question out, each word heavy and controlled. She told me you panic when money gets complicated. He shrugged once, almost lazy, like this was routine. She preferred being hated over seeing you scared, that is rare. That line drilled deeper than any threat because it rang true. I pictured her jaw set during arguments while I checked statements. She had chosen this creep over showing me a balance sheet. Where is she now? The room got smaller while I waited for any sign in his face. That is why you are standing here instead of ignoring my texts. Pressed Shirt closed the folder and set it aside with care. She was due last night with a substantial amount. She never came. The quiet man in the corner shifted his feet and watched me harder. When someone suddenly disappears around deadlines, people start asking why. I leaned over the table until we were eye level. If you touched her, there is no deal ever. He actually rolled his eyes at that, annoyed not offended. If we had her, you would be begging, not questioning. That certainty cut through my anger and left cold space. So who else knew about these meetings besides the three of you? I scanned both faces looking for the smallest flinch. She mentioned someone close who kept making everything worse. Pressed Shirt looked toward the corner chair for a heartbeat. She did not trust that man to stay quiet much longer. My mind jumped straight to my brother pacing his kitchen. He had sworn he would fix it before either of us suffered. Describe the one causing trouble, every detail you remember. I tried to keep any recognition out of my tone. If he pointed straight at family, I needed no script. Late 30s, restless hands always glancing at exits. His eyes went distant for a moment, replaying some encounter. Loves fast risks, hates slow payments, swears he will change. The corner man snorted once, like he remembered the same scene. I am guessing you already know that type pretty well. My fingers curled against my thighs, nails biting into the fabric. I know a version of that man, yes, unfortunately. The picture he painted fit my brother too closely to ignore. So when she stopped coming, what did you do about it? If they had waited this long, maybe they were worried too. We called, emailed, knocked on doors, routine follow-up. He ticked actions off on his fingers like a checklist. Then the number we used turned off and messages bounced. He inclined his head toward my phone on the table. Which is when I sent that single line to you. A memory flashed of my screen lighting the previous night. I had stared at that text and only heard accusation. Now I saw something else behind it, a sliver of concern. You think she ran, or you think something happened en route. Either option made my chest tighten in different painful ways. He exhaled slowly through his nose, weighing every syllable that followed. Nothing in her posture suggested running away from you forever. He rested his elbows on the tabletop and interlaced his fingers. She walked in like someone marching toward a sentence she chose. Even he sounded thrown by the idea of her simply vanishing. Did she mention coming straight here from my place last night? My voice cracked on that last word, one more fracture. She told me she needed one conversation before our appointment. He studied me, eyes unmoving, measuring guilt and confusion. Judging by your expression, that talk did not go her way. The image of her suitcase jerking down the stairs hit hard. I looked away, jaw tight, saying nothing because he already knew. He nodded once like he had confirmed some internal theory. You pushed her out before she could cash out the arrangement. The corner man muttered something under his breath about stubborn spouses. I slapped my palm on the table, startling both of them. Stop circling and give me something useful to follow. Frustration edged every word, shaking the control I clung to. He leaned back against the cabinet again, watching me closely. You want a trail, start where she used to meet us first. That is not here. I frowned, glancing around the cramped back office space. This is the place for paperwork, not initial discussions. He pulled a worn business card from his pocket and slid it over. Her first visit was across town, somewhere more private for nervous clients. I flipped the card between my fingers, reading the address twice. The street name slapped another detail from last night into place. I had driven past that intersection on my way home after throwing her out. She had probably planned to cut through there after our blow-up. If something stopped her between my door and that block, time mattered. Pressed Shirt watched realization land and gave a small, almost respectful nod. You get there, ask around discreetly, show that card quietly. He jerked his chin toward the corner man who had gone still. If no one remembers her, there is your first real nightmare. The word nightmare fit too perfectly with the pictures already crowding my mind. I tucked the card into my wallet, not trusting my grip. What happens to this balance while I am searching for her? The practical question tasted sour, but ignoring it risked more trouble. He smoothed his tie with 2 fingers, expression shifting back to business. You bring proof she is hurt, we freeze everything until we understand. And if she is not? The room seemed to lean toward his answer, chasing it. Then you pick up where she stopped or you fight lawyers. He spoke that choice like both sides bored him equally. Either way, I keep breathing, which is all that deters here. I turned toward the door, then paused with my hand on the frame. If I find out you hid anything about her, we revisit this. My tone dropped enough that even the quiet man straightened. Pressed shirt smiled again, but some of the arrogance had slipped. Trust me, if someone stole my best-paying problem solver, I want answers too. Out in the hallway, my legs felt shaky but aimed forward. The address on that card burned behind my eyes with every step. My anger at her choices sat beside something new, a sick protective urge. Whatever she had done for my sake, I had repaid with exile. Now I was heading straight into her shadow, hoping I was not already too late. I pulled up at the address on the card and killed the engine. My hand stayed on the wheel a second longer than needed. People moved in and out of the storefront, not paying attention. I stepped out fast because if I hesitated again, I would run. Whatever waited inside mattered more than how much it scared me. A small bell jingled when I pushed through the glass door. A woman behind the counter looked up, ready with a routine greeting. I dropped the worn card between us before she could finish. I'm trying to find someone who met a client here. The words came out rough, almost grinding but steady. She glanced at the card, then flicked her eyes back to me. We handle a lot of appointments, you need to be specific. I unlocked my phone and opened the last photo of my wife. Not a happy one, just something from a random weekend. I turned the screen toward her and waited for any flicker. Recognition hit her features like a light switch flipping. Yeah, I know her, she used the back room sometimes. The casual tone twisted something low in my gut. When did you see her last, and do not round it? I leaned on the counter closer than was polite. She chewed her lip, thinking, eyes tilted toward the ceiling. Couple days ago, earlier than usual, she seemed in a rush. That word rush made my shoulders tense and my stomach dip. Did she mention plans for last night or meeting anyone else? I kept my gaze locked on her, pushing without raising my voice. She dropped off an envelope, thick one, said someone would grab it. The woman gestured toward a door marked employees only. She told me if a man showed this card, I should hand it over. She tapped the same logo printed on the scrap between us. Later someone came, flashed one just like it, and collected. My neck prickled at the idea of a stranger taking her money. You sure about the timing? What day did he pick that up? Yesterday evening, right after I started my shift, not late. I swallowed, doing the math against the night I threw her out. That meant the envelope was gone before she even hit my porch. Describe the guy, anything you remember, even something small. She squinted, replaying it, fingers drumming on the counter edge. Tall, lean, looked wired, like he had not slept properly. She hesitated, then snapped her fingers as another detail surfaced. He called her by a nickname when he checked the name on it. My heart hammered once, hard enough to make me lightheaded. What nickname? I heard my own voice drop half an octave. She shrugged one shoulder, almost apologetic for not knowing more. Something soft, quick, like he'd used it forever, not formal. That description fit way too many years between them. Do you have cameras here, anything I can see from that night? Her gaze flicked toward a corner of the ceiling, then back. We record the front and that hallway, boss reviews disputes with clients. She shifted her weight, clearly uneasy about letting me near any system. I slid my wedding band off my finger and set it down. Please, I am not here to blame you, I just need proof. Her eyes dropped to the ring, then lifted to my face again. Something softened there, just a little, enough to tilt things. She sighed and motioned toward the staff door with a quick jerk. We stepped into a cramped office with an aging monitor on a desk. She woke it up and clicked through a clunky security program. Rows of tiny squares popped up, all time stamped and silent. What day was it again? Yesterday, around the start of your shift, you said that. She scrubbed forward until people blurred in double speed. Then she slowed it frame by frame as the timestamp rolled. There, that is when he came for it. She pointed at a figure entering from the street in a hoodie. The image was grainy, but the way he moved grabbed me immediately. Even pixelated, I knew that slouch in his shoulders. He stepped to the counter, leaned in, flashed something from his wallet. The woman on-screen ducked below view, then reappeared with a packet. He checked the label, slipped it under his arm, and headed out. When he turned slightly toward the door, his profile confirmed everything. My brother, not a stranger, not a henchman, family walking off with tea. He money my wife scraped together. I gripped the back of the chair so tight my fingers tingled. The woman watched my face and took a half step back. You know him, right? She was careful, testing whether she had just helped a fight. Yeah, I know him very well. My throat felt thick, but the words still came. Rewind a little further to earlier that same day. I pointed to the time stamp a few hours before that visit. If she brought that envelope, I want to see her too. She reversed the clip until the door swung open again. There my wife was, carrying a small backpack slung over one shoulder. She approached the counter and slid the packet across casually. Her mouth moved, explaining something, hands sketching small shapes. The woman nodded, then waved toward the office we now stood in. My wife's eyes darted around, cautious, measuring exits and angles. Then she laughed at something offhand, a tired sort of laugh. Watching her from that distance punched a hole in my chest. She looked worn down, but her posture stayed determined and straight. Not like someone sneaking around for fun. More like someone stuck in a game with no breaks. I had thrown that same woman onto the street with no plan. Did she come back after dropping that off, maybe later that night? The woman shook her head slowly, gaze glued to the screen. No, that was her last visit here. I would remember another. She hit pause, freezing my wife's face mid-sentence. If she disappeared, it did not start inside this building. I slid the ring back onto my finger while I stood there. So after she left it with you, my brother swooped in later. The words scraped on the way out, each one dragging guilt with it. I guess so. He walked in confident, like he owned the place. Her description made my jaw tense, but my focus stayed sharp. Can you save this footage? I may need it soon. She clicked a few icons and nodded once without fanfare. If cops come, I want them to see what really happened. I thanked her and stepped toward the exit, head buzzing. Outside, the air felt heavier than when I had arrived. I dialed my brother on the sidewalk without waiting to calm down. He answered on the second ring, breathing a little fast. You go near that address yesterday with an envelope waiting. No greeting, no warm-up, just the question straight between us. His silence lasted long enough to give me my answer. Where did you hear that? His voice thinned like someone stretching a rope too far. I watched you pick up her packet on camera, that is where. I paced along the curb, feet tracing angry lines. That money was meant to stop things from getting ugly. I was going to fix it, I just needed time. He sounded cornered, words tumbling too quickly. You stole her last shot at keeping this away from me. A parked car's mirror reflected my own twisted expression back. Tell me you gave it to the man it was for. He inhaled sharply, then did not answer that part. I had my own threats lining up, I thought I could juggle both. The confession landed like a punch aimed at my ribs. You used her effort for yourself while she walked around unprotected. My voice rose enough that a passerby glanced over and sped up. Where is she? Did she contact you after I threw her out? The question tore out before I could shape it softer. He exhaled slowly, like letting go of some last excuse. She called me from outside your building, maybe an hour later. My grip on the phone tightened as I waited for the next part. She sounded wrecked, kept asking if there was anywhere safe. He cleared his throat, the sound thick and guilty. I told her to go crash with a friend, write it out. I squeezed my eyes shut, picturing her alone on the sidewalk. Did you ask which friend, or did you just hang up? I assumed she meant the same place she used before all this. His answer came too fast, like a reflex he wanted to believe. What place? Give me something real, not vague comfort. He hesitated, then finally let the name drop. A name I recognized from one of the oldest threads in her messages. It was the same person who had been texting those hotel plans. Different from the debt guy, different from my brother, someone separate. She told me once he was just an old buddy, nothing serious. His voice faded on that last part, uncertainty creeping in. Now the pattern twisted into something with 3 points instead of 2. Text me the address, every number, every building, nothing missing. I moved toward my car again, heart pounding in a new rhythm. On my screen, his message arrived a few seconds later, Kurt. I memorized it, then tucked the phone into my pocket. Whatever waited at that location would decide who I turned on first. I hammered the buzzer until someone cursed through the speaker. A male voice snapped my full name, then cut off mid-word. I pressed the button again, thumb locked there like a trigger.
No.
Door clicked open with a harsh electric buzz that sounded like a warning. I took the stairs two at a time, lungs burning with each climb. Outside his apartment, I knocked once, then hit the wood again harder. Locks shifted on the other side, quick, nervous, not welcoming. When the chain slid free, I was already pushing the door inward. He stood in the gap, barefoot, hair a mess, eyes sharp. For a second we just stared, weighing distance, weighing damage. "You have some nerve coming here." His forearm pressed against the frame, blocking most of the entrance. "Move or I start yelling and we both meet cops tonight." His jaw shifted, then he stepped back just enough for me to pass. I walked in without asking where she was because I could feel it. Her presence sat in the air like an unfinished sentence hanging mid-thought. Every nerve in my body waited for her voice to cut through. "Where is she?" I did not dress it up with titles or fake politeness. He rubbed his forehead once, then pointed toward a closed door. "Sleeping finally or pretending, either way she is on the couch." Even that simple answer loosened something in my chest and twisted it. I moved toward the door, then stopped halfway, pulse smashing my ribs. "What did you two do last night?" The words came out rough, bitter, heavier than I wanted. He let out a breath that sounded tired rather than scared. "Mostly watched her stare at your number and not hit call." He dropped into a chair, elbows on his knees, eyes on me. "You think you are the only one pissed off in this triangle?" I turned away from him because punching would be too easy. "Those messages between you and her, those hotel plans, remember those?" My hand hovered over the knob while I waited for him to lie. "Yeah, I remember writing every disgusting line to keep a story straight." He spread his hands, daring me to swing, daring me to listen. "She picked the script, I played along, you only saw the costume." I frowned, trying to push through that tangled metaphor fast. "What script, what exactly were you rehearsing behind my back?" "Your protection." He lifted a shoulder, then let it drop again slowly. "Dat guy wanted neutral locations, quiet, no cameras he controlled." His gaze slid toward the window, then back to me. "My name booked rooms, her fake affair gave cover if you snooped." The air in my lungs turned thin, like I was breathing through cloth. So every filthy line was for my benefit. I hated how pathetic that sounded, how small it made me feel. For the benefit of keeping you ignorant and alive in that order. His mouth twisted, not amused, just worn out. I finally wrapped my fingers around the doorknob and turned. It stuck for a moment, then gave with a small creak. "She never touched you." I did not recognize my own voice when I asked that. He answered without looking away, almost offended. I still wondered. "She crashed on that couch every time with one eye on her phone." He jerked his chin toward the living room behind me. "Her idea of cheating was lying to you with her silence." That sentence cut deeper than any graphic message ever could. I pushed the door open before my legs decided to fold. She lay on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket that was not ours. Her shoes sat lined up near the armrest, ready to move. Eyes closed, but the tension in her jaw betrayed her. "You going to stand there all day or come finish what you started?" Her voice made every muscle in my back lock tight. I stepped closer, but not too close, hands hanging useless. "I have spent the last day tracking your ghosts." She opened her eyes slowly, focusing on my face like it hurt. "Congratulations, you finally cared where I went at night." She pushed herself upright, feet finding the floor carefully. "You met the collector." The way she said it made it an accusation, not a question. I nodded once, still watching for any sign of injury. He wanted to know why his most reliable client vanished. A quick laugh escaped her, short and humorless, more like a cough. "Of course he misses me, I paid on time and kept my mouth shut." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, buying seconds. "Did he show you those neat papers with your forged signature?" I flinched because hearing it from her cut different than from him. "I know about the signature and about who wrote it." My hands curled into fists, then relaxed, then curled again. "I know about the envelope you scraped together and who stole it." Her head snapped up at that, eyes narrowing in instant focus. "Someone took that cash before he got it, what are you saying?" I told her about the recordings at the business on that street. Short sentences, no excuses, just the sequence, just the faces. She listened without blinking, hands pressed together between her knees. When I said my brother's name, her mouth dropped slightly, then closed. She stared past me like she could see the footage plow ying on the wall. So while I ran around holding everything with duct tape, he rated it. Her voice went quiet, almost calm, which scared me more than shouting. I covered his disaster and yours, and he still fed off it. She let out a breath that trembled only at the very end. You have any idea how stupid I feel for trying to fix this alone? Guilt pressed down on my neck until I wanted to bow. I threw you out without listening to a single full sentence. The admission tasted like blood, sharp and salty on my tongue. If you want to aim everything at me, you are not wrong. I forced myself to meet her eyes, to hold them, to stay. She shook her head once, slow, like something heavy rolled inside. I lied for months, I hid meetings, I let those messages stand. Her hand curled into the blanket, knuckles pale, lips tight. You reacted exactly how I expected when the fake story surfaced. The way she said fake made my stomach twist into a new shape. You wanted me to believe you were screwing him. The words came out raw, almost a growl, almost a plea. I wanted you nowhere near the men who know your real debt. She leaned forward, elbows on her thighs, staring at the floor. If you feared an affair, you might at least avoid their world. I sank onto a nearby chair, distance equal to a chasm. So you built this whole cover knowing it could blow us up. Our eyes met again, both of us exhausted, neither backing off. I gambled that a broken marriage was better than you and his files. Hearing that out loud made the room feel smaller and much colder. Well, that gamble cashed out fast. I paid it in one night. I rubbed my face hard, trying to scrub off the last 24 hours. I could have gone with you, we could have faced it together. She gave me a look that mixed disbelief and something like pity. You would have gone straight to the cops and he would have escalated. The thought of that collector targeting her again made my skin crawl. He offered to pause everything if I show proof you are harmed. Her head tilted, interest flickering through the exhaustion. Proof like what? Bruises, hospital reports, a funeral notice. The blunt options hung between us, freezing the air. Or paperwork that nails the forgery on the right person. I reached for my wallet, pulling out the card he had given me. He is not untouchable, he still cares about staying off certain radars. She studied the card, then my face, then the door down the hall. Inside her eyes, I saw calculations shifting faster than I could follow. Without a word, she bent down and dragged a tote from under the sofa. Same bag from the video, same weight but new purpose. She unzipped it and pulled out a battered folder stuffed with pages. I started building a case the moment I realized your name was used. She placed it on the low table between us like a loaded object. Inside were copies of agreements, text logs, photos of notices. Her own notes filled the margins in tight, efficient handwriting. Dates, amounts, meeting spots, descriptions of every contact. She had mapped the entire mess I had been blind to. Looking at it felt like staring at the autopsy of our marriage. You take this, you decide how brave you actually are. She tapped the folder once, then let her hand fall away. If you walk it into a station, you burn my bargain completely. Her shoulders dropped, not in defeat, more in acceptance. Maybe that is what should happen, maybe I am done trading pieces. I slid the folder toward me slowly, feeling its weight through the cardboard. This puts you right in the middle of his operation. Her mouth twisted into a bitter, almost smile. I am already in the middle, that file just admits it on paper. She sat back, watching whether I would grab it or shove it away. Outside the window, a siren wailed somewhere distant, fading fast. I pictured two futures, both ugly, both mine to pick. One where I hid this again and hoped he stayed distracted. One where I walked straight into a building with this under my arm. Both versions ended with me alone if I was honest. Come back with me. The request surprised even me, it jumped out before I planned it. We go through this line by line, we talk to lawyers, we try. She closed her eyes for a moment, jaw shifting like she chewed glass. When you threw me out, you showed me your emergency setting. I started to argue, then shut my mouth because that part was true. My reflex was to punish before I understood anything. The memory of her suitcase thudding on concrete flashed hard. If you stay, I will doubt you whenever something looks off. She opened her eyes and gave me that verdict straight. And if I go back, you will doubt yourself every time you get angry. Her voice softened just enough to hurt twice as much. You will hesitate when you should act, afraid of repeating that porch. She shook her head slowly as if clearing water from her ears. I do not want to live with that version of us. I nodded because fighting her decision would only drag us deeper. You leaving does not erase what I did or what you hid. We both looked at the folder, the silent third person in the room. At least now I know what fire I was actually standing in. My fingers tightened on the edge of the file until it bent. She stood and walked to the doorway, stopping just beside me. For what it is worth, I never intended to betray you in bed. Her words came out clear with no tremor, no appeal. I betrayed you with secrets, not another body, pick whichever hurts more. She stepped past, heading toward the kitchen, ending the scene herself. I rose, tucking the folder under my arm, ring heavy on my hand. At the threshold, I paused, letting the smells of coffee and cleaning spray mix. You ever need someone to testify that you tried to save me, call. My voice came out quiet, stripped of anger and excuses. I cannot fix what I did on that porch, but I can stand up now. She did not turn around, just lifted one palm in a small half wave. Do that for yourself, not for me, I am already gone. Her words floated after me as I stepped into the hallway. The door closed with a soft click, nothing like the slam from last night. That difference followed me all the way down the stairs. Later, I walked past my own front door and did not go in. I kept moving, folder against my side, phone buzzing ignored. The streetlights blurred, but my steps held a clear direction. I aimed toward the building where people in uniforms asked hard questions. I had sent my wife out into the night over the wrong crime, and now I just walked toward the one that finally belongs to me.